Welcome back to TalkTickers. Ready for another earnings deep dive? Today we're looking at Philip Morris International, their Q3 2024 report. They're definitely making some moves. You guys sent us over their press release, the presentation slides, and even the full call transcript.
A lot of info to unpack there.
Ouch, yeah.
It's a very kind of fascinating transition they're in, right? Everyone knows them for cigarettes,
Right.
but they're really making a huge push into this smoke-free market.
Yeah.
And this earnings report really tells the story of how that's going.
So let's start with the basics. How do they actually do this quarter? I mean,
Yeah.
the press release makes it sound like they're pretty happy with themselves.
Oh, yeah, they're celebrating some record numbers for sure.
Okay.
Record quarterly net revenue, earnings per share are up. Their CEO, Jacek Olczak, he's talking about excellent momentum. But I think, we need to go a little deeper than the headlines here, right?
Yeah.
What's actually driving all this?
Yeah, exactly. Give me the why, not just the what.
Right. Well, a big chunk of this growth is coming from their smoke-free portfolio.
Okay.
So that's IQOS, ZYN, VEEV.
Right.
Those products now make up 38% of their total revenue.
Wow.
And even more impressive is their gross profit. 40% of that is from smoke-free products.
So almost half their profits are coming from stuff that isn't even a traditional cigarette.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big shift. Did they give like a full year projection for how much they expect to make from smoke-free?
Yeah, they're projecting almost $15 billion.
Wow.
But they're not just, riding the wave. They're actively shaping it.
How so?
I mean, they're investing massively in R&D for these smoke-free products. They're going into all these new markets, and they're even trying to change the regulations, to make these products distinct from traditional cigarettes.
Oh, interesting. So they're not just waiting for the world to change. They're trying to change it themselves.
Exactly.
So within this smoke-free world, which product is really the star?
Oh, it's got to be IQOS.
Yeah.
The heated tobacco system.
Yeah.
Global sales volume for what they call HTUs, that's heated tobacco units, it's up almost 15%.
Hold on, back up for a second. HTUs, can you explain that?
Sure. So HTUs are basically, little tobacco sticks.
Okay.
You put them in the IQOS device. It heats the tobacco, but it doesn't actually burn it.
Okay.
So you get an aerosol. And PMI says it's less harmful than cigarette smoke.
So these are the things that are really flying off the shelf.
Yeah, especially in Europe and Japan. Huge markets for them.
Gotcha. Strong growth in developed markets.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about emerging markets, though? Are they getting any traction there?
Oh, yeah. Big time. They're making some serious moves in places like Indonesia and Saudi Arabia. And in Japan, they are crushing it.
Really?
Their IQOS Ilumame device,
Yeah.
it's driving the whole heated tobacco category to over 50% market share in major Japanese cities.
Wow, that's huge. So they're converting a lot of traditional smokers. How are they doing that?
It's not really a price war. They're going for the premium experience.
Oh, I see.
Sleek design, advanced tech, lots of different flavors. It's more about, the lifestyle, like a luxury brand.
Makes sense. Okay, now what about ZYN, their nicotine pouch? Last I heard, they were having some issues with the supply chain, right?
Right.
Did they mention that at all?
They did, yeah. They said it's getting better, and they think production will meet demand by Q4.
Oh, wow.
They've been investing heavily in that, to get their capacity up.
Yeah.
But here's the crazy part. Even with all those problems, ZYN is still the top nicotine pouch brand in the U.S.
I mean, that's impressive. But what about the illegal ZYN market? Counterfeits and stuff. Are they doing anything about that?
Yeah, they are. They talked about, tightening up their supply chain, working more closely with distributors, and they're even taking legal action against anyone selling fake or illegal ZYN.
Smart. So they're trying to protect the brand and, keep consumers safe too. Okay, so we've talked a lot about smoke-free, but let's not forget their bread and butter traditional cigarettes.
Right.
I'm actually curious. With the smoke-free stuff booming, are cigarette sales tanking?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But nope, not at all.
Right.
They actually reported almost 9% revenue growth in that segment.
Seriously?
Yeah, driven by strong pricing, and surprisingly, global volume is pretty resilient.
I'm surprised. I would have thought with all this talk of a smoke-free future, cigarette sales would be, plummeting.
It is kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But they're actually gaining market share for Marlboro.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive, given the overall trend in the industry.
I need some context here. How are they pulling this off?
Well, from what they said in the transcript, it seems like a lot of this growth is coming from markets where smoke-free products aren't really available yet,
Oh,
or they're just starting to catch on. So they're kind of
mhm.
taking advantage of that, while they're pushing their smoke-free agenda in more developed markets.
So it's like they're playing two different games at the same time
Exact.
and winning at both.
Yeah.
That's tricky.
It is, yeah. And speaking of tricky, there's this whole legal thing going on in Canada that could have a big impact on PMI.
Oh, yeah.
They've been fighting these lawsuits related to, cigarette claims for years.
I remember that.
And now there's a proposed settlement.
Okay, fill me in.
Well, it's complicated. PMI's Canadian affiliate, RBH, they filed for bankruptcy protection back in 2019.
Right.
And now there's a court-appointed mediator who's come up with a plan that might finally resolve these claims.
So this could mean a big payout from PMI.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, but wouldn't getting this settled be a good thing for them in the long run? I mean, less uncertainty.
Yeah, for sure. It would get rid of a big headache,
Yeah.
let them focus on their main business.
Right.
And it might even improve their image, which is important for any company, especially one that's, trying to be a leader in such a controversial industry.
Definitely. So it's a risk, but it could also be a big reward.
Exactly.
Now, before we move on, I want to talk about something else they mentioned, sustainability. I don't usually think of a tobacco company as being, eco-friendly,
Right.
but they seem to be taking it seriously.
Yeah, they're aiming for carbon neutrality in their operations by 2025,
Wow.
and they're promoting responsible water use. They've already hit carbon neutrality in a bunch of their manufacturing facilities.
Okay, so they're actually putting in the work. Why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Is it like genuine concern for the planet, or is it a PR move?
It's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely pressure from investors and consumers to be more sustainable these days,
Right.
but it also just makes good business sense.
Okay.
Reducing their environmental impact can save them money down the road.
Smart.
Yeah.
So it's good for the planet and good for their profits. Win-win.
Exactly.
Okay, so stepping back for a second, what stands out to you from all this? What's the big takeaway so far?
I think it's the contrast, They're doing incredibly well in the combustible segment, like exceeding expectations, even though everyone's saying smoke-free is the future.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're pushing hard into that smoke-free market.
Oh.
So it's like they're playing both sides and they're winning at both.
Yeah.
It really shows the kind of unique position they're in, trying to make money from their existing business, but also building this whole new future.
Exactly. And that makes me wonder, for our listeners out there, are they really committed to this smoke-free future? Or is it just a marketing tactic to get new customers and keep investors happy? What do you guys think?
Good question.
We'll dive into that more right after this.
So are they really committed to this smoke-free future, or is it just, a bunch of hot air?
Yeah, help me understand this. Convince me this isn't just a bunch of corporate greenwashing. What makes you think they're really serious about a smoke-free world?
Well, I think you got to look at how much money they're putting into it.
Oh.
It's billions of dollars. Billions.
Yeah.
Into R&D, manufacturing, marketing for their smoke-free products. I mean, they're not just, testing the waters here.
Right, they're all in.
Yeah.
But couldn't that just be because they want to grab market share?
Sure. That's always a possibility.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. They're actually trying to change the rules of the game.
What do you mean?
I mean, they're lobbying to get regulations changed
Oh.
so that smoke-free products are seen as different from regular cigarettes.
So they're not just trying to sell more stuff.
Right.
They're trying to change how the whole system works.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And they're also starting to address some of those ethical concerns that people have about these products.
Okay, like what? What are they doing?
Well, for example, they're really focused on preventing kids from getting their hands on these products.
That's a big one.
Huge. So in the U.S., for ZYN, they've teamed up with organizations like WeCard and TruEdge,
Yeah.
to do really strict age verification. Yeah. And they've also said publicly that they won't use social media influencers in their marketing.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Because that's how you reach young people these days.
Exactly. So at least they're aware of the risks and trying to do something about it.
It's a good start. Though it does make you think,
Yeah,
is it enough? It's something to consider.
definitely. This is an ongoing conversation, right?
Right.
And they can always do more, but at least they seem to be moving in the right direction.
Okay, agreed. So let's zoom out a little bit here.
Okay.
We've been focused on PMI specifically.
Right.
Their financials, their goals for smoke-free products. But what about the bigger picture? Like, what does all of this mean for the whole industry?
You're talking about the ripple effect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're going all in on smoke-free, but there are other players in the game, too.
Absolutely. And we're seeing so much innovation in this space.
Yeah.
New products, new technologies. It's really a fascinating time to be watching how this industry evolves.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think as investors, and even just as consumers, we all have a role to play in shaping that evolution.
We do.
The choices we make, the companies we support, the conversations we have, it all matters.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, think about this as you go about your day.
Mm-hmm.
What role do you want to play in this whole smoke-free revolution?
Yeah.
And what questions do you still have about PMI's journey? We'd love to hear from you.
Great point. Knowledge is power, guys, especially when it comes to investing.
Absolutely.
And before we move on, huge shout out to TalkTickers.
Yes.
Thanks for giving us all this awesome info about PMI's Q3 earnings.
They really are the best. If you want to get the real scoop on earnings calls, that's where you need to go.
They break down everything.
Yeah.
So even if you're not a finance whiz, you can understand it.
Yeah, yep. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Check them out. And we'll be back after a quick break. All right, so we've covered a lot with Philip Morris, right? Record profits, their big move into smoke-free, the legal stuff in Canada, even their sustainability efforts.
Huh.
But there's one more thing we got to talk about.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Their push into, get this, the wellness space.
Wellness.
Really?
Yeah, you heard that right. They're not just trying to change the tobacco market. They're aiming for something way bigger. The whole global wellness industry.
That's kind of wild, a tobacco company going into wellness.
I know, right? But think about it. They know a lot about nicotine delivery systems, right?
Yeah.
That expertise could be useful for other things.
Like what?
Like sleep aids, mood boosters, even pain management.
Huh, interesting.
And they're not just talking about it, they're actually investing in wellness companies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like one startup that's developing a nicotine-based sleep aid,
Wow.
and another company that makes botanical extracts for stress relief.
So they're using their knowledge of nicotine to make products that could actually help people. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a tricky situation.
How so?
Well, how do they balance their old tobacco business with this new focus on wellness?
Yeah. It's a tough line to walk. Some people think it's just a PR stunt,
Right.
to make them look better.
Yeah, make them seem more appealing.
But others think they're actually serious about using their science for good.
It's like they're trying to reinvent themselves.
Right.
The big question is, will it work? Will people buy it? Will they trust a tobacco company to help them with their health and wellness?
Yeah, good question. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Definitely. But it's a really interesting move. It makes you wonder what the future holds for both the tobacco industry and the whole wellness scene.
No doubt. This is definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. And it reminds us how important it is to stay informed, to think critically about the companies we support and the products we use.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Philip Morris International, what are your final thoughts? Do you think their move into wellness is genuine or just a clever marketing ploy?
And more importantly, what does this mean for the future of the tobacco industry? And for consumers like us, it's a lot to think about. But that's what we do here on TalkTickers, right? We dive deep, we ask the tough questions, and we try to understand the forces shaping our world. So thanks for joining us on this journey. Keep those brains buzzing, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.